This is such an honor for me to introduce our next keynote speaker. He has been a friend forever, and he has really been an inspiration in a lot of people's lives, so you guys are really going to enjoy this. Some might say that Mike Mooney's 25-year career in professional motorsports was just going in circles, working with major brands like Mercedes, Sprint, 3M, Eli Lilly, Sunoco, NASCAR. I mean, the list goes on and on. Didn't you work for Nextel too? Weren't you the head of communications? Why didn't you put that on your bio you gave me? I mean, you were a rock star. That's when I first met you. But Mike's telling lessons are really from the heart and firsthand experience. I really have read his book about 8 times. With championship drivers and teams, he focuses on continuous improvement, peak performance, and mindset to stay on track and a position to win. I guarantee you he will change your life today. And if you don't buy the book today, go online and buy the book, because Mike's got it all. Okay.
Okay. All right. Good morning, Cindy. Thank you so much. You're incredible. You are incredible. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. How are we doing? Gosh, it feels like I'm home with all of you, seeing so many folks last night at the reception. Can we have another hand for Cindy and Lynn and the entire team, Tina, Barbara, for putting this event together? Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Now, I have been in the sport for a while, as you had heard. I got to work with some amazing people, some amazing brands over the years, but I really do believe that I was destined to be around racing, around high-performance vehicles. Now, look, for some of you we've just met, so you might say, Mike, that's kind of bold. You were destined. Wow, okay, that's big. But just follow me on this, okay? Now, I think I'm in the right room, so if I were to say, is anybody here familiar with the Shelby Cobra? Yes. Okay, great, so I'm still in the right room. People familiar with the name Carroll Shelby? Okay, and sometimes I ask them, people are like, I'm not sure. And I go, Ford versus Ferrari and Matt Damon. Oh, yeah, we know, Carroll Shelby. Okay, perfect. Still in the same room. So let me take you back to December of 1970. And my father bought a 65 Shelby Cobra for $1,500. $1,500. He had that car for about 3 weeks. And my mom walks over and says, honey, guess what? I'm pregnant. He's like, that's awesome. That's great. And she says, yeah, we need to build that extension on the house for the baby, don't we? He's like, well, yeah, we could do that. And mom's like, well, we need the money to do that, don't we? And he's like, well, yeah, no problem. Where are we going to get the money for that? Don't worry, I'll sell some things, I'll move some things, I'll do whatever we got to do. My mom walked down into the driveway, took a look around, said, I think I found the money right here. Sure enough, my dad took that Cobra back to the man who we bought it for $1,500, and the guy gave him his money back, right? So from that point forward, my dad, fast forward several years, when I'm in college and going along, he would call me and say, hey, Mike, I was just watching Barrett Jackson. Yeah, you know where this is going, right? Cobra just sold for $250,000. A little while later, hey, watch him make them. $400,000. There goes that Cobra. He would literally introduce me as, this is my son Mike, the Cobra. Okay? I'm not kidding you. That is a true story. So fast forward, I'm in motorsports early in my career. I was working for a brand, Western Auto, and they were one of the sponsors of the International Motorsports Hall of Fame in Talladega. And I happened to be there one year, and I'm at this reception the night before, and who was standing there by himself in the corner of the room? Carroll Shelby. So I walk over to him, and I said, Mr. Shelby? And he looks at me and said, it's Carroll. I said, Carroll, can I tell you a story? So I tell him this story. Now he's looking at me like, never heard this one before, right? But he grabbed his photographer, and he got a picture, and he said, make sure that you give him your address. I said, okay, that's fine. Do that, go about my business. About a month later, I get a package in the mail with that Shelby logo on there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what is in here? I open it up, and here's the picture of me and Carroll Shelby. But attached to that was a note to my dad. And he said, the kid may not be worth a Cobra, but he turned out all right. So with that, I think I was destined to be around motorsports and high-performance vehicles. Now, oh my gosh, during that time, I got to work around championship drivers and teams, and I was watching them as they were constantly innovating and building and fixing and restoring these high-performance vehicles. They're race cars, right? In order to stay in contention to win, to stay competitive, to be in position when the time was right. And it dawned on me, though, that there's another type of high-performance vehicle that needs the same type of building, fixing, restoring, innovation. And that's us, isn't it? That's people. See, I believe with all of my heart that we were all beautifully and intentionally designed to be high-performance vehicles. Yet, how often do we let the words creep in our head? I'm too slow, too old, too banged up. Heck, maybe I'm not as aerodynamic as I used to be, right? Well, I can tell you, friends, it's all crap. It's all crap. And the reason that happens is because we're running the wrong race. The race that we're running when we're thinking that way is looking left and looking right. And I don't know about you, but in my life, I have never and will never win the race of comparison. I never will. You can't. So you got to focus on what's ahead, running your race. Your only goal, your only competition is yourself. To be better tomorrow than you were today. That's it. That is absolutely it. Now, some of you are here today, and were here yesterday, and part of this experience, because you've got momentum and you've got traction in your life or your career that you were looking for this event to build upon, to get to that next level. Now, some of you are here because you desperately want to create that momentum, that traction, maybe through a new relationship, maybe through a connection, maybe through some knowledge. That's going to help you get to that next level. Whatever and wherever you are on that spectrum, it's about opportunity. And here's the thing about opportunity. Opportunity requires three things of us. That's it. First thing, showing up. Well, congratulations. You're here. We're 1/3 of the way through. All right? Nobody told you how to be here, right? You're here because you want to be here. You showed up. The second, do you have an open mind? Will you have the courage to look at something differently? Maybe embrace an idea. Maybe look at yourself differently. Maybe say, I'm going to try something I haven't tried before. Will you have an open mind? And third, action. Will you commit to doing something with it? That's what this event is about, isn't it? It's not just about showing up. It's about the action we'll take as a result of the work and the time, the conversation, the momentum, the energy that we've built all together here, isn't it? And that's the goal. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to speak on this topic of mindset. And I think it's very important. I think it's appropriate for this time that we're together because, quite honestly, the way that we show up, mainly from in our minds first and foremost, is going to dictate and indicate how we're going to show up for others. It's that simple. It's not just about being present. Mindset will help our presence. See the distinction in that? You can be present, but what are you bringing in your presence? For those of you who were here last night at the reception, raise your hand. You were here? Yeah, absolutely. Did you feel the vibes in there? Did you feel how good that was? It was light, it was great, it was fun. That's presence. That's presence. And that's what we're going to talk about here. I'm going to talk about some use now strategies that can change the trajectory of your life and the opportunities that are in front of you if you make the choice to do it. And it's going to be in the areas of control. We're going to talk about emotion. We're going to talk about the power of words and perspective. And I guarantee if you take just a nugget from you and you put it into action, you put it into work, it will change your life. It did for me. Because I'm telling you right now, I'm up here not as a theorist, like I've read a bunch of books, and here are the top 5 lessons I found on Google that I want to share with you. I've been living this. And I did that when I made my pivot from the sport about 5 years ago to start speaking and taking these lessons and ideas. If you don't think you had to get in the right mindset and headspace to do something like that, where you're walking away from the relationship and the equity and knowing how everything is done to start something, I had to be in the right place. So I'm telling you, I've used these, and I believe that they will help you as well. Okay? So, mindset. Let's go ahead with the premise that everything in this world was created 2 times. Did you know that? Everything was created 2 times. The first was in your mind. The idea. This event was an idea. The second time it was created when it was actually brought to life. So how many times do we dismiss that idea that pops in our head, that vision of what we could be, that idea that keeps us up a little bit? There's a reason it was there. There's a reason it was placed in there intentionally for you. Because we're each uniquely designed to bring that to life, if we'd have the courage to do it, because we have choices, don't we? We have choices. So let's start with that premise. It's all started in the mind. So here's a thought. And feel free, if you'd like to take pictures, whatever you want to do, take your notes. It's all here for you. Please, take it. Here's the thought. I can believe my way into an action. I can believe my way into an action. Taking what I believe I can do and then move to act. Or I can choose to act my way into a belief. Maybe I don't show up fully. Maybe I don't make that follow-up call. Maybe I don't do that extra work that ends up to me saying, see, I knew I wasn't going to get that. I knew I couldn't get that done. Why did I think that I was worthy of something like that? So do you believe? Do you believe? So belief can be tied to control, if you think about it. And what do we really control? I believe, and I've come to find that there are 2 piles of, this is the morning show, so I'm not going to say what the 2 piles are. Well, it's like 2 piles of stuff in our lives, okay? There's the stuff that we can control, the things that we can actually control to have a different outcome. Then there's this pile of stuff that we can't control, right? Situations, people. Where do you think we spend most of our energy, our time, our emotions in? Which pile do you think that is? The stuff we can control, the stuff we can't control? The stuff we can't control. Exactly right. Why is that? Why is that? If we could just recognize that we truly only control 3 things in our lives, that's it, 3 things. And it's simply this: our attitude, our decisions, and our behavior. That's it. I can't control what's happening out here, but I can control how I choose to step into that situation that could change the outcome, that could change the way that people are seeing me, the way I'm being seen, and what I have to offer and contribute in that space. See, it's this idea of operating from the inside out versus, as many of us feel, I know I've been there, you feel like Neo in the Matrix where you're just, I haven't stretched out yet, but you know what I'm saying, right? Where he's going backwards and dodging all these bullets coming at him. I mean, that's typically how we live, in this reactive state, isn't it? Especially in the sport. My God, in this sport we do. Go, 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 react, react, react. Dodge those bullets. But what if we would have worked from the inside out, right? From a place where we can take a moment and stop and think about how should we show up? How is my attitude going to affect my decisions that will then ultimately affect the behavior that I want other people to see and experience with me? Because I have the opportunity to change that environment. You truly do. You truly do. So that gets us to the place of stimulus and response. Do you know that about 70% of our daily decisions are made subconsciously? Not even really thinking about it. 70%. So we tend to operate in this knee-jerk reaction, right? Oh, I've seen that movie before. I know how this is going to end up. I know what's going to happen here, right? And boom, we just act. Stimulus, response. So here's the reality. I can't control the stimulus, but you can what? Control the response. So how do we do that? What if we could expand that space? Really build space between stimulus and response. Instead of it being this, how do we expand that? Right? I'll bring this to life for you. Several months ago, like I told you, I'm still working on this. I'm still working on all this, all right? Several months ago, I'm at home. It's a Friday night. This might sound kind of sad. It's Friday night. I'm drinking a beer by myself in my house. Kids are out. My wife's on a trip. And I'm looking at my bank app. I don't know why, but I'm just looking at the bank app. And I look down, and I'm looking at these charges on the account. I see this $1 Uber charge, $2 Uber charge, $1.50 Uber charge. What the heck is going on? And then I see 2 withdrawals from our checking account for $400 and $400. So you know where this is going, right? I'm like, holy cow, someone's hacked in. So So I'm like, all right, I got this. Because this happened to my wife's card several months ago, all good. Call the bank, security fraud. We got an issue right now. I got charges on here. We got to fix this. I get this person on, like, okay, we're going to fix it. What's going on? You don't recognize these charges? I'm like, no, I don't. You weren't at Uber or using an Uber? No, no, we're not. I mean, charges from California. I'm like, no, it's not me. So, okay, well, we gotta cut the card. I'm like, cut the card. Do it. Cut the card right now. Just do it. Okay, great. Cut the card. Done. Perfect. Whew. Now, Mr. Mooney, we got another issue. The other transfers that were made from your account, they have your routing number. They have your banking information. What do we do? So we got to freeze the account. Well, freeze the account. Freeze it. Shut it down. Okay, great. It's frozen. Perfect. Great. Thank you, sir. You're a great help. I'll rest easier tonight. Have a good evening. Click. I fix things. I fix things. I call my wife. Hey, babe, look, I just got to let you know, I don't want to spoil your time. It's all good. I fixed it. It's fine. But we had some fraud going on the accounts. She goes, oh my God, are you kidding me? Again, it happened months ago. I'm like, I know, I caught it. Thank God I caught it now. It could have been worse. I had all these charges. It was on your account. It was on your card again. She's like, what would you do? I said, well, I froze the account. I mean, I cut your card off. She's like, okay, all right, well, that's fine. I said, yeah, babe, it gets worse though. But it's okay, I fixed it. Somebody moved like $800 out of our checking account. They have our routing information, they have all this stuff. She goes, wait. Sweetheart, which is her code for dumbass. She said, what were those charges for on the I said, well, it was Uber. No one's used. She's like, I used Uber today 3 times. I'm like, huh. Yeah, but there's other charges. I don't know about that. The 800, she's like, the kids needed money. So I transferred money over to their accounts. So she said, you're telling me I'm on a girls' trip in Vegas right now, and our checking account is frozen, my debit card is cut off. Is that what you're telling me? I said, when you say it like that, it doesn't really sound very good. She said, okay, Mr. Fix-It, go fix it. Okay? Stimulus response. Wasn't that what just happened there? Right, I should have taken my own lesson here, but I didn't, because I went into that knee-jerk reaction of, I've seen this before, I know what it must be. I know how it's going to, my mind's already framed it up, right? So here's what we can do. This is what I do right now, and it's helped me immensely, right? So here are 2 steps. If I get some feedback on something that wasn't what I expected, because I wanted to control something, right? If I get this feedback, instead of launching into action, I'll sit there and I'll say this to myself, that's interesting, right? I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just interesting. It's just interesting. I'm leaving it at that. Then the second question I say, I wonder how that could play out. I wonder how that can play out. So now I'm approaching this from a place of curiosity. Curiosity. And oftentimes, I'll use this with people who are giving me that feedback. If it's something I don't want to hear or something that didn't work into my plan, and I'll say out loud, that's interesting. And then I switch the pronouns up and I bring them into a solution. I say, well, I wonder how we can have that work out. Right? How can we have that work out? Think about that. Think about the power of bringing somebody else into a conversation to help you with a solution instead of going to that knee-jerk reaction. So it's this whole idea of how can we go from preconception to curiosity? How can we live in that space of curiosity? Because that's where the magic happens. That's where solutions show up and people and resources that we hadn't even expected because we're not operating from a place of, this is how I know it's going to happen. This is how I know it's going to show up. Okay? We tracking on that? Good? Awesome. Okay, next one up. The power of emotion. Oh, gosh. Thank goodness we don't work in a sport with any emotion. Right? Thank God for that. But here's the interesting thing. Emotions. They're just a signal of a feeling. That's it. A signal of a feeling. That's all. The challenge with emotions is when we let it become a state of being. When that emotion takes root, and now we're in a state of being, which is anger, frustration, anxiousness, depression. That's where it becomes dangerous. That's where we have to look at where are we within the space of emotion, of recognizing what it is and where it's coming from, right? So I want to take us back to a time in the sport, and this was a tough time, admittedly, for our industry. Okay, we're going back to 2001, the Daytona 500, and we all know what happened there, where we lost an absolute icon and legend within the sport, okay? And at the time, NASCAR was coming under a lot of scrutiny from the media, questioning safety, questioning all these different things about the sport. It's a very, very tough time for the sport, not only in terms of why it was being questioned, but also the fact of the loss, right, of an individual. And what NASCAR did, they hired a gentleman by the name of Jody Powell. They brought him down from Washington, D.C. And Jody was the former press secretary for President Jimmy Carter. He was basically a fixer. He was a crisis management expert. Brought him in to help them navigate these choppy waters of what to do and how to emerge from this crisis. And about a year later, in 2002 in Daytona, in the garage area, I had the chance to spend some time with Jody. And I asked him about this whole experience from a crisis standpoint. And he told me this amazing story. He said, Mike, he said, I'll tell you, this was a tough time. And there was a meeting that Bill France Jr. called together of all of his senior lieutenants. And it was a very uncomfortable meeting. It was a type of meeting where people were counting ceiling tiles and they were looking at their shoelaces. Okay, Mr. France was very emotionally charged, very emotionally charged. The volume was all the way through the roof, and it was not a pleasant place to be, very emotional. And he said there was a moment, though, when Mr. France caught his breath and stopped. And I leaned in, and I said this to him, and it changed the entire dynamic of the situation. He said, Mr. France, with all due respect, being pissed off isn't a strategy. The silence you hear right now was the silence that Jody said was in the room at that moment. All the air was sucked out, and people were like, oh, this is going to be good. What's going to happen now, right? But what happened next was incredible. Because Mr. France looked over at me, said, and leaned in. He said, you know what? You're right. So what are we going to do? See, that simple statement, how often do we let being pissed off drive us forward? It's not a strategy. Action is. So the question I'd ask of you is, if you're in a place of emotion, how quickly can you move to action? It's okay to feel it. It's okay to recognize it. Don't stay in it. What can you do to act? How quickly will you move to make that phone call, to have that conversation, to talk to that person, whatever it may be, instead of sitting there in a place that's only going to get worse, only going to get worse. So being pissed off isn't a strategy, friends. In your life or in your business, things happening to you, I don't know. Maybe they're happening for you. So that's the power of emotion right there. Shifting gears. Words. Which words do you think are more powerful? The words that we say to ourselves or the words that we say to others? What do you think? The words we say to ourselves or others? Ourselves, absolutely. Absolutely. Because the words that we say to ourselves are going to inform the way that we show up for others, right? We can't be talking trash in our head and suddenly be like, hey, this is great, everyone's wonderful, we're going to do this together. That may work short term, but it's not a long-term play. It's not. Because it has to be congruent. There's got to be congruence in the brain, and the brain knows that. It'll show up in your body language, it'll show up in your words and your tone, all of these things. So it's really about the words that we use for ourselves. And that gets back to what I opened with, right? How often do we creep in our own head and get in our own way? So what if we did some wordplay? And I have some examples here that maybe you can relate to, maybe they resonate with you, right? But here's one here. How often do we say, oh, I have to. I have to go to this meeting. I have to go to this event, right? A simple shift in the word, right? I get to. What an opportunity. What a gift. I get to go and do and be a part of this great program and great event, right? How about this? There's so much to do. Oh my God, I have so much on my list, so much I got to do, so much. It's overwhelming. What if it was about accomplishment? Right? I have a lot to accomplish today. This list is full of accomplishments for me. Well, I step into it and do it, right? Oh, I never said this one, right? Oh, I messed up so bad last time. I'm not doing that again, right? I messed it up so bad. Here's the flip. What'd you learn? What did I learn from this last experience that's going to make me better? That's going to help sharpen my saw. Because again, every experience, it's not wasted. It's an opportunity. How are you learning, right? This is a great one. I've felt this so many times in my life, right? Why is this happening to me? I'm a good person. I'm a good person. Why is this happening to me? Well, how about for you? It's happening for you, but can you find the lesson in that? We're going to talk about that a little bit later on, but can you find the lesson in the experience that you're having, right? About this one, especially when we're traveling so much, right? Oh man, I'm not going to sacrifice my time, my energy. I'm not sacrificing any of that. It's ridiculous. What if it were an investment? What if that were an investment in a relationship? Relationships that could actually create more opportunity. That's an investment, not a sacrifice. Little nuances, little shifts. And what that's doing for us is it's moving us from a place of mental obligation to mental opportunity. Okay? There you go. Words. What you say matter inside as much as what you say externally. Keep that in mind. Oh, perspective. I love this one, right? People always think perspective is about how you think, right? Oh, I think the glass is half full. I don't know. I think it's half empty. That's what I think it is. What I ask you to do with perspective, especially as it relates to you and your mindset, is to be thinking about how you see things. See things. Because how you see it in the perspective you have can be radically different here. In this example, holy cow. Why is Prince William flipping off the crowd? Right? From that perspective, yes, he is. However, from a different perspective, it's a little different, isn't it? It's all in how we choose to see things. Will we move? Will we shift to see something from a different perspective that may not have been there originally? And maybe that idea comes to you. Maybe someone suggests that to you. Maybe you can look at it differently. Remember, opportunity requires open mind. Open mind. Now, I've got a client of mine. Do a lot of work with the Mattioli family up in Pocono. And I go up there, once a month, and it's a great program that we're doing. We have one of the largest regenerative organic certified farms up there in the United States called Pocono Organics. You check it out. Little plug, sorry. But anyhow, during COVID, I would drive up there, right? And in the Shenandoah Valley, there's this farm that I would drive on 81 all the time. And just something struck me about this picture, and I drove by it several trips. And I finally said, I'm going to stop and take a picture. What stands out to you in this picture? What's that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, at first I thought it was like, oh, you got a rusty roof, you got this old dilapidated farm, must have been cool and stay, but there's a freaking tree growing out of a 30-foot silo. Are you kidding me? And it got me thinking, back to perspective, right? That tree had no business growing. I have no idea how old that tree is or what's going on the inside. I got no idea. But it had no business growing in a freaking silo. Did it? Some would say that seed was buried. Well, that tree, quite honestly, just did what it knew to do, which is to grow towards the sun. That's all it knows to do and what it was made to do. So actually that seed was planted. Now, some of us may feel like we're in a situation where we've been buried, where we're in a work environment or a relationship, or even in our own heads, where we feel like, what am I doing here? I shouldn't be here. This is not for me. I've been buried. Now, I'm not saying that you stay in a situation just to kind of work through it and beat your head against the wall. I'm not saying that you stay if it's not healthy, but I would encourage you not to leave just because of that. I'd encourage you to think about the idea of, what am I supposed to learn? What am I supposed to take from this? Maybe this environment is actually here to forge me and make me stronger. Maybe there's a lesson in here that's going to change the trajectory of my life because I'm reflecting in my own mind. I'm not going to be the victim of a situation. I'm a victor. I will overcome. I have to, though, be mindful, intentional, and reflective to think about, what am I supposed to take away from this? And even if you do leave that situation, I'd still encourage you to say, what am I supposed to learn from this? And the lesson is, they're a bunch of jackasses. They don't get me. This is a bad, toxic environment. You know what that is just pointing, and pointing. Where's that moment of self-reflection? Where's that growth? How are you becoming that champion, that high-performance vehicle? You reflect on the inside. You take it inside, right? Now, when I hold this up to certain audiences, I get some funny looks, okay? And for you in the back, I don't know if you can see it up here. I'm sure you all can see it. What is this right here? It's a restrictor plate, absolutely. NASCAR instituted these in 1989 after Bobby Allison's crash in '88 at Talladega Superspeedway. And the whole intention of this little plate was to do what? Reduce horsepower by reducing the amount of air and fuel mixture that went into that engine. Okay? Now, what's interesting about these restrictor plates, as you're looking at it, not really much, very thin, very light, nothing substance. You put that on an engine that was intentionally designed to create 800 horsepower, we'll say. If you put that restrictor plate on there, what happens to the horsepower? See right here, it goes down to about 410. But the interesting thing with the restrictor plate is what happens to that horsepower when you remove that restrictor plate? It's not a trick question, I promise. It goes right back up to creating the horsepower that it was beautifully and intentionally designed to create. You picking up where I'm going here? Right? How are we living? Are we living restricted? Or are we really looking at the unlimited opportunities that are in front of us? And they're here. The challenge is that we let these restrictor plates get in our way. And they could be little things. They could be things that have crept up on us from over the years. They could be something somebody said that validates in your mind something that you've chosen to believe, right? Over the years. And I'd like you right now to take just for a moment, reflect and write down, is there a restrictor plate in your life right now that's holding you back from creating that horsepower that you were divinely made to create? What would that be? Just take a moment and think about that. Because the reality is that all the restrictor plate was made to do was to keep things safe, keep drivers safe. That's it. That's why I highlighted that. Safety. That's it. Our brain has one sole focus. Keep this thing alive. Keep it safe. When has anybody ever punched through a barrier? When has anybody ever gotten to the next level in their performance, their career, their life by playing in that safe place? Can someone tell me? No. We've got to be bold. We've got to be bold. We've got to be willing to take that restrictor plate off. We've got to be willing to believe what we were uniquely and beautifully designed to create, because it's there within each of us. We have that light. We have that ability. And I see heads nodding because you believe it. You feel it. I know that. I do as well. So the interesting thing with restrictor plates is it takes in this idea of fear, right? Fear. And I believe, though, that on the other side of fear, there's faith. And I'm not just talking about a spiritual faith, and I'm not just speaking that. I'm talking about faith in yourself, faith in your skills, faith in your abilities, faith in the accomplishments and the work you've done before, faith in you. And the interesting thing is that faith and fear ask us to do the exact same thing. You know what that is? Believe in something you can't see. See, so much of what's going on in our minds, the body has no idea if it's real or not. So mindset's really tied to every aspect of our life, from our health to our opportunities, our success, our relationships, because the body doesn't know the difference. It's the mind that's driving that, but the mind can't necessarily see the fear. It's just believing, choosing to believe in that fear. The funny thing is that when I was at Roush Fenway before I pivoted over to speaking, I remember driving home from work one night, and I knew this is the direction I wanted to go in. I knew I wanted to take these lessons and ideas and really just work with people, have them truly believe that they are high-performance vehicles. They truly are. And I'm sitting there at this light, and I'm scared out of my mind. We got 3 kids in high school, and I really felt this passion to do this and move in this direction. I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I'm scared out of my mind, Creator. Universe, please, just give me a sign. And I'm at a red light, and there's this big tractor trailer in front of me. And in the corner, left corner, the small little sticker, it says, "Everything you ever wanted is on the other side of fear." Wow. Okay, and there it is. So the interesting thing is that when we come into this world, we're only born with 2 fears. Did you know that? It's 2 fears. Yeah. It's a fear of falling and a fear of loud noises. If you don't believe me, try it with a baby. No, I'm not going to take any responsibility for it, but I think we've probably seen this in the past. If you're holding a baby and you do the hey and you do the whoopsie, and what does the baby do? Freaks out. Happens with a loud noise. Cowers and freaks out. Every other fear that we have after that is a learned behavior. It's learned. We've either seen something happen to somebody, or we've chosen to embrace and accept and believe their own limitations. that they've passed on to us. Oh, no, you don't come from the right group to do that. You don't have the right skills to do this. Who do you think to be able to go and stand up and break this barrier within sports and be something that wasn't there before? It's not you. Other people's fears being pushed upon us. Be mindful of that. Be mindful of that. That's the worst anchor that you could ever have, is believing someone else's fears and what they're placing on you. You know, Hemingway wrote a book, and I know you're probably thinking, Hemingway? Dude, it's about Hemingway, it's the Hemi engines, right? We got to talk about that. But I'm a bit of a Renaissance man, right? I'm kidding. But he wrote a book called The Sun Also Rises. And in this book, there was a character that went bankrupt. And his buddy asked him, he said, man, how did you go bankrupt? And the guy says, 2 ways. Gradually, then suddenly. Right? So I think you're picking up the vibe from me that I'm more on the positive side of things. I believe that there's opportunity even in times of crisis, all right? But in this case here, if the gradually and suddenly led to crisis, well, can't the opposite be true? I mean, how often does the suddenly appear? I can tell you Lynn would say right now that her career was gradually that led to suddenly moments, and gradually then suddenly moments. That's how it is. That's how it works. It's gradually, then suddenly. What are the things that we're doing gradually? That's why I said early on, can you take a small step? Would you commit to action? Something you can do today and then do it again tomorrow that would create the suddenly result in the vision of what you want to do, who you want to be, the impact you want to create in the world, the sport, the industry around us today. Because we need that. We need you. We absolutely need you. So if you were to look at that from the standpoint of a calendar, and how does that work? Well, I'd encourage you to think about this. If there's something going really well in your life right now, if it's a relationship, it's your work, it's your finances, whatever it may be, I'd like you to think back 6 months. Think back 6 months, and what were the things you started doing in that area? What were the habits, what were the actions that you took 6 months ago that have you now in this moment where you're seeing it all come together? Right? Gradually, suddenly, because it takes 6 months, at least, to see the result of the work being put in. Now, conversely, if you're not happy with something that's going on in your life right now, if in a relationship, your work, finances, whatever it may be, I'd like you to go back 3 months. Just 3. Ask yourself, what did I stop doing? What did I stop doing? Because that's how quickly it can change. You suddenly can get there faster. So I say, Mike, that's great. What can I do from here? Are there some things? I wanted to share, I normally don't do this, but I wanted to share some things, some questions and thoughts that might help you as you're thinking about shifting your mindset. Okay? And I want you to just kind of like think about how could you answer these questions and how would you go about putting it into action, right? So the first question is this. What are you saying to yourself? What are the words that you're using to you, for you, when you look in the mirror? Are you using words of love and grace? Because Lord knows we've been through a lot the last couple of years. Are you giving yourself grace? What words are you using? What words would you want to use? Do you love yourself in that sense, in that respect, right? Here's another one. What are you listening to? What are you listening to? What fuel are you putting in your mind, right? In your podcasts. And I'm not saying that you can't have fun and watch TikTok, and there's a lot of good stuff on TikTok and other social media, but what are you putting in your mind? Is it really feeding the direction that you want to go in? Is it? Here's the other one. Who are you listening to? Right? We talked about that before. Be mindful not to pick up and own other people's crap, their fears, their limitations. Simple as that. Who are you listening to? You're listening to the right people. Be careful of who you ask as well, because people will be very quick to project their fears onto you and why it won't work. And unfortunately, we're kind of susceptible to saying, oh yeah, I guess you're right. I guess you're right. Another one. Are you driving with your rear view mirror? Think about that. There's a reason why the front windshield is way bigger than the rear view, isn't it? But how often are we trying to drive forward towards something, but we're looking in that rear view of all the crap that we've done in the past, right? That we say, like on social media, people are playing their highlight reels, and then in their minds we're playing our bloopers. You know? How often are we there? How often are we living in the past? No, leave that in the past. Drive forward. Look through that windshield. And finally, think about a small step you could take today. What resonated with you today? What could you take away? What could you put into action? What would you be willing to put into action is more like it to get to that next level. Now, if you want to get crazy with me, here's another step you can do. This is a lot of fun, but if you want to get crazy, I want you to visualize something. I want you to visualize your future self. Take a look. How would you show up, right? How would you show up? What words would you use to describe yourself? More importantly, how would I feel when I see myself in the future? How would I feel? Science has shown that if you tie an emotion to an action and an outcome, you are more likely to see that through and create it because of the emotional tie that it has to you. Not your thinking, not some goal, the emotion that triggers inside of you. So how would you feel? I'd encourage you to think about that. Would you be more confident? Would you love yourself more? Would you believe in yourself more? Think about that. I would encourage you to work through those questions, work through the visualization. We need that. So I'm going to wrap up here with a final story. Back when I was doing public relations for NASCAR's 50th anniversary back in '98. Now I got to tell you, it hurts my lower back just thinking the fact that next year is a 75th anniversary. So I was realizing, I'm like, my God, that just hurts thinking about it, right? But I had the opportunity to be driving with Junior Johnson to an event. All right, and we were driving, and I looked over, and I'm like, my God, this guy has done everything in the sport. He is such a success. And I said to him, I said, Junior, you've been so successful. I would love to learn what it took for you to be so successful. Is there like a silver bullet, something that you could just share with me, because I'd love to know. And he looked at me, and he said, yeah, you know what, there is. There is. I'm like, okay, great. Now, some of you may have heard this story, but when you hear it from Junior Johnson himself, it takes on a whole other level of significance, okay? He said, Mike, here's what it does. It comes down to a breakfast plate. Pretty simple, right? 2 animals were needed to make that breakfast plate, right? He said, you got those eggs, and that hen laid the eggs today, right? And that hen's going to lay eggs again tomorrow, and that hen's going to lay eggs again the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that. So that hen was involved in making that breakfast plate. He said, now, that hog on the other side, that hog was committed. It was committed. Whether it wanted to be or not, it was committed. It was all in. So he said that was always the question I would ask myself and my team. Am I involved or am I committed? Now, I believe, because you're all here today, that you are way committed to not only making the difference we need in this sport, but more importantly, committed to finding and embracing the high-performance vehicle that is in each of you, that we've each been designed to have, because we have what's called a DNA in us. And I'm not talking about X and Y chromosomes, friends. I'm talking about your DNA, your divine natural abilities, the things that you were uniquely designed to create and do that no one else can do like you. So my encouragement is that when you find and you embrace that high-performance vehicle in you, you just do me a favor, please. I want you just to grab the wheel as firm as you can and then drive it like you stole it. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time. Thank you.